My name is Stephen Hatchett, and I approve this message.
And today we are joined, as you can see, by Stephen Hatchett, who is running for District Attorney General. And Stephen, how are you?
I am doing good, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. And through this interview, these interviews that we're doing, we really want to get to know the candidates. So I'll just begin. Just tell us about yourself, how you grew up.
Well, I was. This sounds like a pitch for the political campaign, but it's actually just simply the truth. I was born in Polk County. I grew up in Monroe County. I worked as a prosecutor in Bradley County, and I currently live in McMinn County. So literally all four counties of the 10th Judicial District, I have a direct tie to. I actually have a lot of family in Polk County. The bulk of my family obviously is in Monroe County. I went to Coca Creek Elementary, a very tiny little school up in Coca Creek. Graduated from Tellico Plains High School. Everybody at Coca Creek, it's K through 8, so then you have to go down the mountain to Tellico. Graduated from East Tennessee State University. I have a degree in criminology. Went to the University of Tennessee College of Law. Pretty much went there to be a prosecutor, quite candidly. Only classes I did well in was criminal law and trial practice. So there's at least that if anybody were to ever pull my transcript. And then I started work at the district attorney's office in 2006 under then District Attorney General Jerry Estes. Worked as a prosecutor for right at 8 years, 7.5, 8 years. And now currently I'm in private practice. I'm up in McMinn County. Primarily McMinn and Monroe, but I do come down to Bradley County. I have cases here. I have cases in Polk County.
So you had that growing up period of a sampling of all of these counties in one way or the other. Growing up, what prepared you, do you think? I mean, when you look back, you think of your childhood or sometime in adolescence, and you think, there were some experiences there that prepared you for a time like this.
Well, I'll tell you, growing up in Monroe County, one of the things that the older generation told my generation, because you have to remember, these are people who came up in the Depression, people who came up in World War I, World War II. There were people when I was a child that was born in the 1890s.
Wow.
And hard work was what they had known. And what they imparted to me was get an education. Don't be like us, proud people, hardworking people, but don't break your back for a living. Use your brain. Use what's between your two ears. Don't break your back. And these are people, good people, honest people, hardworking people. But education, go to school. And, that always stuck with me. It never left me. Coca Creek, for the size that it is, it's a tiny little school, but you have doctors, you have lawyers. We even have a rocket scientist that works out at Jet Propulsion Laboratories in California.
Oh, man.
Went to Coca Creek Elementary, a little school up in the mountains. And I think that it's because that older generation that was up there that knew what backbreaking labor was, understood the importance of education, and they focused on that. And I think really, if I were to point to anything growing up, it would have to be that hard work is important, education is important, learning skills is important, but then also doing things well. How do we impart to our children what we have learned? Because what made me, what made you, we have those experiences, but how do we give them to our children to say, hey, listen, because I guarantee you, your children and my children have things that we didn't have as children.
That's true.
Okay?
That's right.
They've had experiences and opportunities that we didn't have. We had to work for it. And that's it's not a bad thing at all, but how do you pass that down to your children? How do you give that to them to say, hey, listen, when I tell you this is important, it's important. The older generation, when I was growing up, when they told me, it was obvious why it was important. All I had to do is look at the calluses on their hands. All I had to do was listening to them tell stories of working in the copper mines in Polk County, working in the sawmills in Monroe County. You know, hard manual labor. If you want to feed your family, you're going to have to get out, you're going to have to get up, you're going to have to get it done. So really, I think that right there is what I would point to, Steve, as when I grow up and I look, why am I sitting here as a lawyer? Because neither one of my parents graduated high school. My dad didn't even graduate from elementary school. My mom's passed on now. My dad's still living. He can read and he can write, but he can't read and write great. And his son's a lawyer. You know, take that to a broader spectrum. When I hear people talk about this country and what it is and what it isn't, I'm one generation removed from a guy who grew up as a sharecropper in Alabama.
Wow.
Okay. Don't tell me this ain't the greatest nation on the face of the earth, right? And that has nothing to do with this. But to your question, though, that as I look back that is what I point to as being what makes me me and growing up.
Okay, you talked about your family or the older generation passing things on you. What do you tell your daughter? What do you tell the next generation? What do you want to pass on to them? Is it the same thing? Is it adding a little more?
Well, I think honestly, if you look at the world today, what we have to pass on to our children is the exceptionalism that is the United States of America, the exceptionalism that comes with living in a free society. If you look at the course of history, freedom, truly free societies are tiny little blips on the timeline of history. Wow. Okay, most of recorded history have been people who are in subjugation to someone else. The idea of a free society is not the norm in history. So when I talk to my daughter, I want her to know hard work is important. The value of what is and is not important as far as is money important? No, you have to have money to survive, but money's not everything. The house you live in, the car you drive, fine. You need roof over your head, you need food on the table, you need a car that gets you from point A to point B, but that's not the important things in life. So what I want her to know is that there are things in this world that matter, but there's also the love of your country that you have to have, and the desire to ensure freedom for this generation, for the next generation, and the next generation. And one thing with running for office is my daughter asked me a lot of questions about, things in the political world that probably if a child doesn't have some exposure to it or their parents not involved in it, they're probably not going to talk about it. But she sees it and she'll ask me about it. And I do it. I'll guarantee you, you probably do it. Most parents, you're in the middle of something, you're busy, and you'll say, well, it's, and you'll try to give them the Cliff Notes version. One thing that I try to do is I try to stop and say, okay, now we're going to talk about this. I want you to understand it. She asked me one time about slavery in this country, and that's a very long, difficult discussion to have. And I had to catch myself because I said, well, here's the short version. But then I thought, no, she's interested in this. This is important. And we sat down and we talked about it. And obviously she's 8 years old, so all the concepts of it she doesn't get. But it's there. And it's one of those things that I want. That's what I want to pass to my daughter is freedom's not free. It never has been free. And you have to understand and appreciate that. And if you don't appreciate that, it's just like anything else. If you get something and you don't have some price to pay for it, you don't appreciate it as much as if you did. So to the extent that I can, I talk to her about that. And that's one of the things that it really concerns me. Can I impart that to my daughter so that she knows and she appreciates it, and going forward
I want to talk about, in the time we have left, I do want to talk about the race. And simple question, why are you running? Why are you doing this?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the big reasons I'm running is my daughter. I want my daughter to grow up in a safe community. The reality is, if you look at the crime rates in the 10th Judicial District, since 2014, they've went up. They went up exponentially. Policy, crime control policy, comes from the district attorney general. A lot of people don't realize that. Your law enforcement agencies have policies within their agencies, but the overall policy comes from the district attorney general. We have got to, in this district, we've got to get the crime rate under control. And that's why I'm running. I'm running because I want my daughter to live in a safe community. I want your son, your daughter, your family, grandkids, whatever any person has that they care about, I want them to be in a safe community. You know, I told you I have a degree in criminology. I could easily, Steve, just sit in private practice, do exactly what I'm doing now, and say, it's not my problem. But I see that there are things that can be done to get crime under control. And at the end of the day, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't sit on the sidelines. And if the voters choose me, I'm going to take every scrap of knowledge that I have. I'm going to take every ounce of sweat that I can muster, and I'm going to work to get us back to what we used to be, what we were before 2014. We're going to get the crime rate down. We're going to make the community safer. And that's really why I'm running. I see things that can be done better. I know they can be done better. And I just couldn't. I just couldn't sit on the sidelines. I had to run.
And the time we have, what do you tell the voters? Why should they vote for you?
Well, I'll tell you, here's 5 things that we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get back to individualized justice. We're going to start focusing on offenders. We're going to prioritize offenders who are dangerous offenders. That's number 1. Number 2, we're going to get back to communicating with law enforcement. We're going to get back to communicating with victims. I have received, I couldn't tell you how many phone calls from law enforcement officers telling me that I should run and then offering support after I announced I was running. And the one thing that I hear from them consistently is nobody talks to us. And I'm not talking about your chiefs and your sheriffs. They do a fine job. We have great law enforcement leaders in the 10th Judicial District in all 4 counties. I'm talking about your street level police officers, your officers out here on the streets. We've got to get back to talking to them. What are you seeing? Who are the people that are the problems in your community? We've got to know that. We're going to get back to talking to victims. Actually, the assistant district attorneys are going to talk to victims. There's victim witness coordinators in the district attorney's office, and they do a fine job. But the lawyers who are handling the cases have got to start talking to victims, and they're going to. The third thing that we're going to do is we're going to reduce the backlog. There is a massive backlog of cases in our grand jury system, and this has nothing to do with COVID. This backlog existed prior to COVID. That's going to have to get reduced, and we're going to reduce it. We have general sessions court in this district sometimes that goes till almost midnight. I've been there. I've seen it. That's going to stop. There's no reason for that. We're going to efficiently handle cases. We're going to expeditiously handle cases, and we're going to reduce the backlog. And by reducing the backlog, we can focus on cases and offenders that need to be prioritized. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on the drug problem. Drug houses apparently is a massive problem in this district. I didn't know it till I announced my candidacy. I get phone calls all the time from people saying we have drug houses in our neighborhood. Those houses are going to get shut down. I will expend whatever resources I have to get those drug houses out of the neighborhood. For anybody that doesn't know, a drug house is where people literally have people come in and buy drugs. The other thing we're going to do, we are going to shut down as best as we can any drugs coming into the 10th Judicial District. We're going to put a wall up, if you will, to keep it from coming in. We're going to focus on drug traffickers. That's what we're going to focus on. The people who actually are moving large amounts of narcotics into this region, because once drugs come in, you have a hard time stopping it. You've got to stop it before it gets here. Most of our drugs are coming across the southern border. It's just a fact. The DEA put out a notice last year about fentanyl coming across the southern border. Most of your meth comes from across the southern border. You've got to stop it from getting into this community, and that's one thing that we're going to do. So when you say, why should people vote for me? The simple answer is, I know crime, I know criminals, and I know how to deal with it. Not because I'm a politician, but because literally I went to school, I studied it, and I know it. So Would you hire a politician to build your house? No. Would you hire a politician to put the electricity in your house? No. Would you hire a politician to put the plumbing in your house? Probably not. Hire the person who knows how to do the job. And that's me. And that's what I would say to people.
Our guest today, Stephen Hatchett, running for District Attorney General in the 10th Judicial District. This has been Mix TV, the candidate profiles. I'm Steve Hartline.
Here at Mix 1041 and Mix TV, we are maximizing our coverage this election season with one-on-one interviews, scheduled discussions, candidate spotlights, web polls, and so much more. We believe it is important that you stay informed to make decisions that matter to you and your family. Don't miss a minute. Visit mymix1041.com. Our election coverage is presented by the Logan Thompson Law Firm.